Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about some books that I recently finished reading. I have 3 books to talk about in today's video, and they all came from the Abominable Book Club. And the first one is The Resident by David Jackson, and this was a thriller. I think they were all thrillers actually. We then have Deity by Matt Wazalski. We then have The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. So yes, these are the 3 books that I recently read and finished, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about them and what I thought. 2 of them I really enjoyed and one of them not so much, so I actually might start with the one that I didn't really enjoy that much. And it was a surprise to me because I've seen this book. Let me show you. It was The Last House on Needless Street, unfortunately, and I've seen this book all over Instagram and BookTube of people really excited about this book, and I read a lot of really good reviews on this book because whenever you go on Goodreads it talks about how good the ending is. There's like twists and turns in it and everyone was really shocked and surprised by it. So yeah, I was really excited to receive this in Abominable Book Club, and it sounded just really like a really interesting story. And it's kind of set here as like a true nerve shredder. It's chilling, beautiful masterpiece, suspenseful, and yeah, everyone was just basically ranting and raving about this book. And unfortunately the only thing I really liked about it is the cover. I think the cover is really pretty. I like the trees on the black background, but unfortunately aside from that I really didn't enjoy this book. It's set from like a dual perspective. You follow 2 different people. You follow a strange kind of man who lives in this house on his own, the last house on Needless Street, and you're following his story. And right from the offset he comes across as a very unreliable narrator, and there are certain things he says and does in this book that from the very first chapter I knew exactly what the premise of this entire book was going to be, and it's going to be hard for me to describe what happens without giving anything away for people who haven't read this book. It's kind of one of those things that if you know, you know. But yeah, how can I describe it? The kind of plot point that or the kind of, trying to think of a way to describe it without giving anything away. The way he's written is kind of obvious what the ending is going to be. Some people didn't. I feel like I can't really say, like I said, this is really hard to describe without giving anything away. But basically his entire way he's written and the way the chapters are divided up and the way his speech is, to me it was very obvious what was happening from the get-go. And the plot device that she used to move the story along, I really don't like it when authors use that in stories to move the plot along. So it really rubbed me the wrong way when I started reading it. I was like, oh god, it's another author using this as the twist in the book, when I don't see it as a twist at all. I don't like it when people use those kind of points in stories and twist it to try and make it look a certain way, and they flip it and oh actually this happened, and it's like, well yeah, now you've just represented this in a really awful way, is my opinion. Some people enjoyed it, I really didn't. The other half of the book is written from the perspective of a young woman who is looking into the disappearance / death of her sister. When she's a young child, her younger sister goes missing, and it's her on the hunt for whoever took her sister. And her chapters were interesting up until the last very few chapters. I really didn't like the ending of this book. I was like, it just made me feel like the entire book was completely pointless. So yeah, unfortunately really not one for me. I was very disappointed. It was a really big push to get through this book because, like I said, from the very first chapter, I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen in this book, I know exactly where they're going, but I kept pushing and pushing through it, thinking, oh, maybe I'm wrong, and the twist is that it's not going to be this at all, and it's going to be something completely different. But no, unfortunately I was right, and it ended exactly what I thought it was going to end. And yeah, just really disappointing. I would love to know people's views. If you've read this and you feel differently, then drop a comment down below and tell me why you felt differently, because I don't know, maybe people who have read books who don't have this kind of plot in them before, it would be surprising, but I know a lot about the subject that is brought up in this book, and I'm very familiar with it, and so it was just extremely obvious to me from the get-go what was happening. And like I said, I've read other horror stories who've used this as a plot point, and I just don't like it. I just feel, yeah, it's a bit exploitative. So yeah, that's my feelings on this book. Unfortunately, it was a big shame. But now we're getting on to two books that I really did enjoy. I'll talk about Deity first, because I read this a little while ago now, and like I said, I got it in the book box. This is in a series, but I believe you don't have to read the series in order. Great reviews on Goodreads, and I was really interested in this because it's a story about a musician, a very famous musician who has a lot of mystery around him, and he comes across as a very eccentric, quirky character, and not a lot of people know much about him. And he's this singer, and he lives up in Scotland, I think it is, in this woodland area, and there's lots of mystery surrounding this woodland. So it's like, is something paranormal going on, or is something freaky going on, or is it just social media twisting things to make it look a certain way when it's not? I found this really interesting. I started reading this also when a lot of drama was going on around YouTube, and it was interesting to the perspectives of the different people and how people can see things from different lights and what is actually the truth. And I really enjoyed this because basically 6 Stories is a podcast, and it's a man, and he goes around collecting information from different people, and then kind of runs with that narrative. So he's trying to get everybody's view from all different sides, and the story is told through the form of interviews, podcasts and articles, which I really liked. I've never read a book like that before, and I just thought it was really interesting. It did mean that some of the things were a little bit repetitive, because people would say similar things in the article, and obviously they go over and over again who the guy is, the musician, who he is, Zach Crystal, that's it. So it says, when a pop megastar Zach Crystal dies in a fire at his remote mansion, mysterious demise rips open a bitter divide between those who adore his music and his endless charity work, and those who view him as a despicable predator. So there is a few trigger warnings for this book, I would say. But overall, it was really interesting. I loved the way it's written. I would be really interested to read more by this author. Like I said, I think this is a series, like the six Stories podcast is like a series where this guy obviously investigates different crimes and social media things. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Yeah, this was good. This actually got me out of a reading slump as well, so really enjoyed that. And then the book that I literally just finished a couple days ago is The Residence by David Jackson, and this was another one that I also really enjoyed, and I knew I would enjoy it. As soon as I read the premise of this book, I was like, this sounds right up my alley. And it's about a serial killer, so it's a thriller, and you're reading it from the point of the serial killer, which are my favourite kind of thrillers. I really enjoy that. I got into thrillers, like detective novels when I was younger. That's what got me into reading, and I would always read about it from the perspective of the detective. But I feel like I've done that, you know, I've read so many books like that now. I just wanted a change, and I've kind of flipped over and now enjoy reading books from the killer's perspective. I find it really interesting. So he has committed some crimes and he's on the run, and he breaks into an abandoned house on the end of a terraced street, and he figures out that he can drop down into the other houses, the joined up houses, through a joined loft space or attic space. So when he goes up into the loft, there is no it's not bricked up between the houses. He can just go into all the houses and then get down into those houses through the loft space. And when I read that, I was like, I'm definitely going to enjoy this, because you've heard, I mean, I think everyone's heard of real life stories of this happening. Someone breaking into your house and living in your house, and you don't know they're there, and they're all along they've been living in your basement or your attic or something. I just find that really, really creepy. So there is 3 different houses that he can get into, and he interacts with all of them at some point. There's an elderly woman, there's an older married couple, and then there is a newlywed couple. And yeah, he kind of just spies on them, and yeah, things get a little bit strange. But then the ending took me a little bit by surprise. I was a little bit surprised by that. I really liked the ending. I thought it was really well done. This had pretty good reviews as well. I did see a few people not liking it because they thought it was a little bit slower paced, which it may have been at times. I do feel like, I'd say my one disappointment maybe about this book is it could have been a lot more, it could have been darker. Like, they could have gone really, really dark with this and a lot more twisted. So that was my one and only complaint. I feel like it could have gone darker, but overall I really, really enjoyed it. It's kind of, the story's told, like I said, from the perspective of the serial killer, but he has like a dual narration in his head, where he talks to himself basically, and doesn't really address like if he has some kind of mental disorder or why he has that, or split personality or whatever. I think it's just, you know, to keep the story going, otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell the story, because it's just one man thinking to himself. So yeah, he kind of talks to himself. There's like 2 sides to his personality, and that was really interesting. That was really good to read. I just thought it was really well written. I quite liked the pacing. Yeah, there were some things that he did and said in this book that yeah, kind of took me by surprise a little bit. He's not everything that you think he's going to be, if that makes sense, and like you find out more about his past from flashbacks and stuff, and maybe a tiny bit of insight of why the way he is, and why he's so messed up. But yeah, overall really recommend. So this is my book wrap up of the month, and I've also read a couple more books, but I'm going to put them in my next book review. So yeah, unfortunately not a fan of Needless Street, but these 2 definitely hit with me. I definitely want to read more by both of these authors. If you know any more of their books that you think I would enjoy, then drop a comment down below and let me know. Yeah, because I really, really enjoyed these. I also have another book review coming up, but I lent the book to my dad, so I've got to wait for him to finish the book. And they're all self-isolating at the moment, so I probably won't get that back for a week. But that was House of 100 Whispers, which was also from Abominable Book Clubs. That's probably my favourite book this year, but I'll get more into that for the review when I actually have the book back. But yes, that's what I have read within this month so far. I'm currently reading quite a few things. I also have a book haul coming up soon, because I purchased quite a few books this month. So yeah, it's been a pretty good reading month for me recently. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on these books down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are you gonna give them a go and see what you think? But yeah, and also any suggestions you have for me, then leave them down below. And yeah, that's all I have to say really. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!